according to the New York Times, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 churches in the U.S. close down every year, which they say is evidence that Americans are losing their religion. Research shows that belief in God, however, is still very high. So can we relate to this? Have you lost interest in religious organizations but maintain your spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, yeah. I grew up in the church. I grew up in the Lutheran church in Calgary. I went to Bible camp every summer. I was a camp counselor for 100 years. And then I got into my grown-up life and I stopped going to church. And for me, what's hard is that I think of church with two different spellings. I think church with little c, which is community, and then church with big C, which is the corporation. And I have a hard time with the Big C church. I love the community. God, I loved youth group. I miss that from my kids. To have when school sucks and your friends are awful there, and then you go to your sports and your friends are awful there, you could go to youth group and at least you'd have other people, right? And I miss that for my kids. I miss the idea of a church coming together, a community coming together and taking care of others.
Yeah.
I miss that, but I have a really hard time reconciling going, for example, my son has a Berenstain Bears Old Testament, and he opens it up and he reads the stories, and we read a lot of them.
Berenstain Bears Old Testament.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like a kid's version of the Bible. But he reads the stories, and the God that he reads about is not the God that I want them to know. I want them to know this loving, forgiving God.
The mean God, the scary God, the God who's always in a bad mood.
So what we do, we try and talk about it, but it is hard. I want them to have that faith, but I don't know how to do that.
What do you think?
I mean, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I got baptized, I got confirmed. It was a super serious thing, being Filipino, but I was about 12 years old when I started reading about the Big Bang Theory and evolution, and I was always like a math and science kid, and then I sort of reached a point where I really couldn't reconcile the two. So now I am an atheist, and I just see no reason to believe in God anymore. You know, I sat down and asked myself, why do I believe in these things? Why do I believe that there's a heaven and a hell? And I just couldn't come up with a reason. So for me, it makes so much sense that people are sort of leaving behind the church, because they're sort of coming to the realization that it is such an old, archaic, patriarchal system that you don't need to be a part of anymore. And I think that's evident in the fact that lots of people, they're leaving behind the men in robes, and they're still sort of trying to find some way to be spiritual and sort of connect to whatever higher power they think there is.
Can I just ask you, though, about that decision to be an atheist? Because, as you mentioned, you're Filipino, and it is, we know from Mal, who is also Filipino, her mother is that it's a big part of the Filipino community, and so with her family...
Oh, they didn't like it at all.
Okay, and so how... exactly, is what I'm asking, is I think that, personal decisions often with religion aren't just unique to you, because you are introduced to religion through your family. And so many times when people make these decisions, it also has an impact on their family relationships. And that's what we hear a lot from, that's the key, right? So how did it, I mean, you don't have to answer.
No.
About
Luckily,
that.
my family wasn't too harsh about it. I mean, I told them I didn't want to go to church anymore because I don't really believe in it. But they sort of, fought back against me a little bit, but I was like, no, this is really what I believe. It's my life. It's my personal relationship with this God, and this is just what I believe. And they sort of just had to accept it and move on.
That's great.
I think that's so great. And I think, I wonder, and I'm curious about your opinion about this, if instead of focusing so much on the afterlife, which many religions do, and what will happen in the afterlife, if we focus more on the beauty and the magic of this particular life, if we treat this planet better, treat people better, treat humans better, there's something in there with the problems that I see with religion. For me, as a parent, I also was raised Catholic, and there were many things when I look back that were very comforting. This explanation of heaven when, people in my life died. There was this sort of period of time where I blissfully just believed, oh, this fancy thing. It wasn't as I got older where I saw all of the contradictions and lots of, the really problematic individuals in power that I lost my religion. But I've retained this spirituality, and as a parent, it's hard to communicate this to my son, who has a lot of questions. And I feel like last year he had a bit of an existential crisis. He was like, because I thought I was helpful, I was just like, some people believe this about life, and some people believe you get reincarnated and you come back as, maybe a creature or something, and some people believe there's a heaven. I tried to explain it all, and I think he was like, but what is it? Like, what's gonna happen to us? And I couldn't give that explanation, which isn't necessarily comforting for a child. Having said that, a year later, I do actually think it's funny the way kids then come forward. And I think he likes this idea of like, there's a mystery that we're not entirely meant to know. And that's okay. There is things that still could be, you can decide what you want to believe, because we don't know. We aren't meant to know completely.
Yeah, we aren't meant to.
Yeah.
It's okay to wonder.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks for watching. We've got lots more discussion and debates on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.